Okay, welcome back to the Impact Talks podcast.
Thank you.
Today we're going to talk a little bit about data analysis.
Yes.
And Ilja De Coster was a guy who took us through that. To be honest, he lost me when I saw the video. He lost me a bit with all the numbers and the analysis. So maybe you can simplify this for me and for all our listeners out there.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and I can understand you why you were lost, because one is understanding the whole data, the graphs and all that. But if you don't have the fundraising context, you're from beyond the sector, then it's really hard to understand what the heck people are talking about. So that makes sense. So Ilja joined in, and he's really good at data. He has a wonderful data mind, but the good thing about it is it's always linked up to a business problem. So the one of the examples or the cases he went through was the whole telephone fundraising and churn, and how does that work? So that was really interesting to explore. But I think first of all, I met Ilja, I think probably 18 years ago, very early in my career, and I've been following him, all the way through. And he is sharp, and that's why we brought him in, because we had a lot of sessions talking about the values, the approach, how we should be doing things, some inspiration about purpose and acquisition, etc. But I think what we lack a lot in the telephone and fundraising sector in general is being really good at our numbers. And with the modern development in AI and analytics and all these things, we should be doing it more, because that's where we can see the lifetime value increase when we build good relationships in telephone fundraising. So that was what Ilja was introducing to us. But what he does is he doesn't, just give you a yes and no. There's always nuances in every analysis, and that's what he did as well. So the first case was if you call people and you upgrade them. What happens then on keeping people on board?
Upgrade them how? Sorry.
So you people are giving money, and you can upgrade them by either converting them to a regular gift, so they give monthly, or you get a bigger gift out of them, something like that. So it can be done in many different versions. But what they tracked on this campaign was what happens afterwards. Because if you only look at telephone fundraising campaigns as a ROI, we called, we got this much money, or we called, we got this amount of regular givers, that's the effect. You're really limiting the value of the tool or the channel, because there's so many spin-off effects. So Ilja talked about when the telephone campaign was running, the web shop had a spike on online donations. And when I ran my own call center and we did acquisition of new donors, we always went back to the charity and said, this is the list of people who said they would give online and not convert directly on the telephone. And when we did that, there was always 2 or 3% of the people who said they would that ended up giving. So where do you attribute those donors? Is it digital, who's really good at doing what they are doing? Or is it the telephone fundraising who's actually doing? Or is it a combined effort? And that element he brought in, so how it has a spillover effect on other channels, the telephone fundraising. But the core element was also looking at what happens to churn. And what you saw was there was a split test. So you had a group, you didn't do anything, and then there were the ones you tried to call. And what you saw was that people who you called and said yes were reduced in churn, less people dropped off in the future. People who said no, there were less people who dropped up in the future. So even though you say no, that conversation has increased your loyalty with the charity and the work they're doing, the purpose. One thing, and I love that, that's the nuance he brought in, is that the people you tried to call but didn't pick up, the churn increased. So people fell off. So, if there's like, what's this number? Whatever the explanation is, that's what happens. And if you look at when I started in telephone fundraising and what's happening today, in the old days, we did if you contacted members, you would be into contact with around 85 to 90% of the people on the list. Today, it's probably around 50 to 60% because you work through the list faster. But that's, the good story is if you talk to people and they say yes or no, they stay longer. That's a good thing. But the bad thing is if you call a lot of people And there is evidence that they churn easily, or they would leave the organization if they get, if you try to contact them and you don't get through. Well, if you're then only contacting 60%, suddenly you've got 40% who go into that risk of being dropped. And I can see in your eyes, I'm getting a little bit out on the technical side here. So ask me, what's the big thing you're wondering about, Ulrik?
I just try to understand that he provides data analysis, making you able to see which tactics to use.
The reason why I would be studying under Ilja De Coster at one time in my life is being aware what happens in your database on all kinds of different campaigns and what the effects are. And especially if you're trying to move into the sphere of omnichannel, where you're using many channels to communicate, you need to know what works for different problems or different challenges or different motivations. And that's the key output of this is calling people and having a conversation increases their loyalty with, even if they say no. And with the ones who say yes, it's even better. So that's one key thing, is it's worth doing. The second thing was, if you don't get into contact with them, there might be a chance they drop off. But I think, and this is a really important point, and thank you for kind of addressing it again, is this is one analysis done on a group of organizations. This might not be the case for your organization. And I've seen this at so many conferences over the years, is people just adapt a consultant or a fundraiser from a charity's data analysis without exploring the fundamentals behind it. And is it the same case? It can be very contextual, or it can be the exact same case. But you need to find out because your donors might behave differently. And I think that's a key thing with the work we do in Impact Talks, is we need to look at that long-term effects, because if you can reduce your churn, people dropping off, if you can reduce that by 5% of the total volume, the total value of that is so much more than acquiring a few new donors. But it's understanding your metrics, what are the effects, and being aware of both positive and negative effects. And that's a really important point in a context like that.
Yeah, no, it really makes sense.
Yeah. And I mean, that's, again, coming back to the purpose of what we're trying to achieve in Impact Talks, is how can we raise more money by using the right channels? And right now we're really throwing all our effort and work into telephone fundraising, because it's one of the best channels to work with. But it's like with any tool, don't use a screwdriver to ram a nail into a piece of wood. You have to use a hammer. So when you're a fundraiser, you need to know what the whole portfolio is. And telephone fundraising isn't a sexy topic on conferences and blog posts, etc. It's a lot about digital and face-to-face and strategy. But one of the best ways of raising funds is using a telephone to talk with people, especially going from small donors to medium-level donors to high-value donors. And instead of being so caught up in recruiting a lot of new donors, look at the ones you have, because a lot of them would probably want to give a lot more. And the Pareto optimum, which is 80-20, so you get 80% of your income from 20% of your donors, is get high-value donors instead of all the small ones. But you can't get a lot of high-value donors if you don't have the small ones. But you need to build strategies around that.
So what can people expect from the next event?
We're in the process of curating the next program, and we got 4 speakers lined up, and it's all from behavioral science to how to incorporate, how to get an emotional impact, and how to use AI. But we still have 2 speakers that we still need for the program. And that's, part of Impact Talks, is inviting people to come. And we pay speakers, so you can take some time off work to actually do it, or give it as a donation to a charity or whatever. But if you have something on your mind out there with the data, or how donor-centered communication is, or for one of the themes later on the year on innovation and management of telephone fundraising, please get in contact, because one of the limits in a person like me organizing an event is my network is here and I have strong ties with these people. A lot of brilliant knowledge is beyond my network. And that's why if you can share this podcast, or you know somebody who should be talking with us, share it, because everybody will profit from it in the long term. So we have 2 more speakers missing, but I think to summarize the next event is, how do you do donor-centered communication? How do you make that really rock? If you join in, you'll know afterwards. You can go and explore that on impact-talks.com, and you can see both how to buy a ticket, what the theme of the next few events are, and really important, if you have a story or some knowledge you want to share, please do get in contact. Either write to me personally, my email's in there, or sign up for our newsletter or call of speakers. We really want more people to join in, so you are very welcome. Thank you.
Hello,